Well, hi. I'm Peter Barnes, and I hope my slides will be up here in a minute. I agree with most of what Dan just said, certainly that the prospects for any significant carbon pricing legislation in the next couple of years are slim to none. But having said that, I also agree with what one of the congressmen said earlier, that we can take advantage of the next 2 years to build a movement around carbon pricing so that when the political tides do shift, which they eventually will, I'm sure, we will be ready. Now, so the question that I'm going to discuss is the one that's, I guess, one of the main topics here is what, at least in my view, is the best mechanism for carbon pricing. And as many of you know, I have a horse in this race. I have a preference, which is for a cap. As Dan said, I think a cap is probably the best upstream tool. A cap and dividend, that combination. And specifically as embodied in the CLEAR Act that has been co-sponsored by Senators Cantwell and Collins. That said, and I'll explain a little more about the CLEAR Act, and I should, before I forget, mention that at the end of this session you can pick up a fact sheet about the CLEAR Act in the back. Anybody who's interested in, there is a website as well that you can get more details on. Anyway, having stated my preference for cap and dividend, one of the points that has become clear to me, certainly today and yesterday at this conference, is that cap and dividend without offsets and with a price collar, which is part of the Cantwell-Collins bill, is functionally equivalent to fee and dividend, which is the concept that has been promoted by Jim Hansen, and Charlie's probably going to talk about that, and I know Laurie and Alan from California are talking about that. So there are a few differences between the two, but they are so small as to be insignificant in my opinion. What both cap and dividend and fee and dividend have in common are these three main features. One is that they are both upstream, economy-wide. They capture and put a price on the carbon as it enters the economy, so that gets all the carbon. And along with that, they have a mechanism, both of them, for steadily raising the price over time. Second, they both return most, if not all, of the income in the form of dividends to all Americans equally. And third, neither of them involves any trading of hypothetical Wall Street created pieces of paper that are often referred to as offsets. So those are the three main things that assures the integrity of the pricing system, assures that we meet our goals, and assures that the pocketbooks of most Americans are protected automatically as the prices go up. So now, I should note that all these features here that are common to cap and dividend and fee and dividend are not, were not part of the cap and trade bill that was defeated last year, nor are they exactly the same as what the tax shift proposal is, which involves a reduction of payroll taxes. I'm not going to get into the details of all those differences, nor am I going to whip the horse of cap and trade here. What I am going to talk about for my remaining time is just some of the political lessons that I've learned anyway in the last couple of years. Oh, the purpose of this slide is just to say that cap and dividend, fee and dividend if we win either one of those, I'll be joining the party dancing in the streets. So the main lessons, I think, that I've learned anyway in the last year are political. I got the US Senate logo up there for a reason, which is that as we go forward in the political game, the next venue is going to be the US Senate, not the US House. The US House went first. This last time around, they all got burned. They're not going to go first again. The Senate's got to go first. So everybody should just bear that in mind. Obviously, as has been repeated many times today, we can't get anywhere without bipartisan support. We need something that at least some number of Republicans can support. We also have to address regional disparities. The cap and trade bill tried to do it in what I thought was a pretty weird way by giving away free allowances to utilities. There are other ways to address regional disparities, but one way or the other, we do have to bear this in mind. Oh yeah. One of the arguments used against cap and dividend in this last go-round was that somehow it would take money from average housewives in Ohio and pay it out to people on the coasts, like, what's her name, Paris Hilton living in Hollywood, which was completely false, but it showed how the regional issue was used against carbon pricing. Obviously, whatever plan we come up with has to protect the middle class, and as I say, all the carbon pricing schemes we're talking about today do that. And the other thing, important piece of this is we're going to start, carbon pricing is going to start low, and it's got to work its way up over 20, 30 years to something that could be a pretty high price ultimately. So we have to design the system so that the American people don't get cold feet as the price goes up, but in fact are eager for the price to go up, because their dividend checks will go up automatically along with the carbon prices, and a majority are going to come out ahead financially. This is a winner for a majority of American people. That's got to be built into the system. So I talked about the CLEAR Act. Cap, upstream cap, 75%. This is how it works. It's very simple. Upstream cap and auction, 75% of the revenue goes back equally to every American with a Social Security account. Monthly dividends transferred electronically to your bank account or debit card. No checks in the mail. That's, too costly, and it's so last century. So it's all electronic, extremely simple, extremely efficient. You can pull the money out in cash from any ATM machine, so it's real money that's going into your pockets on a monthly basis. There are a few other details which we don't really need to get into, but I'll just mention them: a price collar and an adjustment mechanism, a fast-track mechanism which authorizes the president at any point in this 30, 40-year transition to say, okay, price isn't high enough, the cap isn't low enough, the science has changed, we've signed some new treaty, we've got to ratchet things up. There is a mechanism in the bill that says the president can recommend to Congress to ratchet things up, and Congress must vote up or down within 30 days, no filibuster, 51 votes, simple majority, you can ratchet this thing up. That's an important feature. So I don't know if I want to get into this in the time here, but there are still some unanswered questions about, until we get a bill, this is really the point here. Right now, we have the Cantwell-Collins bill. I was talking with Cantwell's office the day before yesterday. They are reintroducing the bill in the next session, knowing it's not going to pass, but they want to keep pushing it. They're going to have at least a couple more co-sponsors, I'm told, one of whom will be a Republican. There will probably be hearings in the Senate Finance Committee, so, and allies are being sought all across the political spectrum. So the Cantwell-Collins Clear Act is progressing, even in this difficult political climate. And I think there'll be some surprises in terms of getting, mostly in terms of getting Republican support for it. I just want to say that, you know, in the previous session I was in, we were comparing cap and dividend with a tax and a payroll tax rebate, and even fee and dividend has a problem in the sense that it can easily be made to appear as a tax. There was that interesting article that many of you may have read in the New Yorker about the history of the Carrie Lieberman bill, and it was quite clear that there was one permutation where they had a linked fee, which is something they called a linked fee, and the CBO said it was a tax, and Fox, which it was, and then Fox News started calling it a tax, and everybody freaked out. And I mean, that's one of the reasons, from a political standpoint, why a cap has a slight advantage. Another political consideration has to do with payroll tax rebates. They're somewhat invisible and don't have the same kind of reinforcing. It's much harder for people to appreciate that they're paying a little less tax than they otherwise might have, compared to, oh, I've got some money in my bank account which I can go down and withdraw at an ATM machine. That is a lot easier for people to focus on as energy prices rise. And there's also the problem with the tax approach of, well, how do you deal with regional concerns? Can you get bipartisan support? All that stuff. And is it simple? Tax things tend to get pretty simple. Anyway, my last thought here before I pass it on to Charlie is that I think we have to adjust the Clear Act a bit, given what we've learned in the last couple of years. And a framework that I think makes some sense, which might even apply to the fee and dividend model as well, is to go with the upstream, 100% upstream auctions or fees of some sort. That same 75-25 split of the revenue, but we need to think a little more creatively, I think, about where the 25% non-dividend or non-rebated money goes, and whether some pieces of that can be used to address regional concerns, job creation in states which need that kind of help, and maybe longer term, some federal debt reduction as a way to appeal to the more conservative coloration of the current Congress. Thank you.